I'm Tim Bradner. Thank you for joining us with Capitol Views. We're here with Senator Peter Micciche, the new Senate Majority Leader this year. Peter, welcome to Capitol Views.
Thank you, Mr. Bradner. I'm thrilled to be here. It's been, I think, 4 years since I've been on your show.
Time goes by. Senator, it seems like the total discussion in the Capitol building this year is the fiscal gap in the economy and all the issues that are related to that. Your thoughts?
Well, I think there's no question that every Alaskan is at home holding their breath, wondering if this legislature is going to solve this issue this year. And as you know, there is a solution on the table that the Senate passed last year. Last year it solved 94% of the problem, closing the fiscal gap. This year with some changes, various changes, it solves about 88% of the problem. It's obviously the Senate Bill 128 type of sustainable dividend for the public, sustainable funding, or at least the vast majority of the funding for the general fund. And it's interesting. We've had a change in the House. The leadership has changed for the first time in many years, led by Democrats. It'll be interesting to see. I know they have the same priority. In fact, I think if you interviewed both, their majority leader, Representative Talk, and myself, we would say the same things. We're going to reduce our expenses. We're going to identify how to fill that gap. We're going to continue to deliver quality services to Alaskans. We can both say that. You would think that would lead to a 90-day session and total agreement, and we would walk out, everyone celebrating with a glass of champagne. But how both sides get there are going to be the devil in the details.
Yeah, nothing is simple. One of the questions that's been raised about the plan that was passed last year, and I think we'll see similar plans this year, is the fact that the dividend structurally is changed and it's not connected to the performance of the fund. Some people raise the question of whether that changes the relationship of the public to the fund. The public sees a dividend, the fund performs well, the dividend gets higher, and also they see it as a protection of the fund against somebody wanting to raid the fund for one purpose or another. Any thoughts about that, or is there a way to structure it so you still retain that connection, or is it that important?
Well, first of all, Senate Bill 128 does not have to be how the vast majority of this fiscal gap is closed. The mechanism does not have to be exactly the same. And I think some of the ideas that can go out there is to essentially not restructure the fund. I mean, I think when you talked about that detachment from the 5-year running average, I think the governor's view was to connect the public more with the value of resource development, right? Because more of the royalty were being deposited into the fund a different way. But perhaps we do it on a more temporary basis with a POMV, not restructuring how the fund, how the dividend is paid out. The public may be more comfortable with that, I don't know. But I do think we need to look at the fewest changes possible that provide the funding we need for that proportion of the fiscal gap with as many guarantees as the way they're used to seeing the PFD as possible for the public. And I think that's very doable. I think you could also put it on a 3-year sunset or something where we relook at it and they know that we're not going to restructure their permanent fund dividend forever. Before you ask another question, I've got to just say one thing for anyone in the public that doesn't know this. When I ran for office 4 years ago, I can guarantee you there was not a voice in the back of my head that said, I really hope I get to be the freshman class that interrupts the flow of the PFD. Right? I mean, I think because you hear the public saying they've always wanted to get their hands on it, and the last thing in mind, I mean, I came into office, oil was at $107 a barrel, things were going fairly well, and that was the last thing in my mind. But I was elected to deliver the lowest cost, best quality government for the people in my district. And unfortunately, there are few options as effective as a 128 type bill.
You know, we should probably explain what POMV means. It means percentage of market value, but how does that really work?
So you
It's
have,
a fairly simple idea, but yet it's also complicated. It can be.
it can be. I mean, if you think about it, so the corpus is constitutionally protected. We can't touch it. All of these funds would come from the earnings reserve, but the draw would be based on a percentage of market value and
The fund's market value.
the fund's market value, which is how a lot of sort of sovereign wealth is kind of managed. It's more of an endowment model.
It's like college endowments,
Sure.
university endowments work the same way.
So you have a total value of a fund, and you want to pick a percentage of market value that is a draw, that is would be very unlikely to fail the test of being successful with the earnings to be above that percentage of market value. So last year's is 5.25. That may be perhaps a little bit rich, but
Too high, maybe.
a little bit high. I think we could come down a little bit and have an adequate amount of funding, perhaps not solve that 80-something% of the problem. But still, if you look at that simple move, even if we came down a little bit on the percent of market value that was drawn, of say 5%, right? You're typically going to beat that significantly in an average year over the long term. You don't look year to year, you look over a longer term horizon. And when we all count on, in our 401ks and our other investments, we count on a long term of 7% or so. And you still have an adequate amount to pay out the average dividend. And again, some people don't like that. They say you're stealing half of their dividend, yet 3 years ago they got an $870 dividend, I believe. So
That's true.
very close to the average dividend over the 34-year horizon.
Yeah. Well, this has been interesting. Thank you, Peter, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us on it. This is Tim Bradner. Thank you for joining us on Capitol Views. Thank you, Senator Micciche.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.